show every single day. And it's upbeat, it's high energy, it's very high effort. I come and I bring my all every night. 5 days a week is a grind. You don't realize people say, oh, big whip. It's taxing. It's a lot of prep work. The performance is very strenuous. Don't get me wrong, it's better than a wage job. That's definitely true. Not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people grind it out. I will say to his credit, Hassan Piker grinds it out. Clavicular grinds it out. Sneeko grinds it out. There's a lot of people that will do an 8-hour stream. They put the hours and they do it every day, but it's not a lot of people. So gotta give myself some credit. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Crusader said $100.
Don't get me wrong. This is way better than a wage job. I'm not even okay. If I had to drag myself out of bed every day in the morning, I think I would commit suicide. I literally cannot even conceive of how people do that. Because it is like my least favorite things in the world. I hate waking up when I don't want to. I hate getting out of bed when I don't want to. I hate getting ready when I don't want to. All separately. I hate waking up, and then the worst part is like getting out of bed. And then you gotta like stand under water. It's like they hate us. They hate us! They want us to be miserable. They made it so that every day you have to be awakened by a machine, by the most unpleasant sounds. Rant, rant, rant. Every day. Who designed this system? You're sleeping, you're having a dream, you're having a sex dream, you're having a dream where you're living the dream. And then this like machine that's designed to be a nuisance startles you awake. It literally startles you awake out of a restful, peaceful slumber. Okay, get out of bed. And then you gotta go to the bathroom, blast it in the face with water. Gotta get ready for your goy job, pack a lunch. People pack a lunch. People are putting perishable food inside of plastic containers, inside of paper bags, getting dressed at the crack of dawn. It's freezing cold outside. So it's been 30 minutes since you were violently awakened, since you were violently startled awake. You have taken a shower, packed your lunch, you're drinking your stimulants to keep you awake so you can work harder. Now it's time to get in a lumpy ass car seat and get in traffic for 70 minutes. Now you get out of the entrance ramp and you just see one car after another. You go 3 miles an hour, go into an office with fluorescent lights and a drop ceiling and a bunch of fat, ugly people. And then it's the sights and sounds of the office. Plastic finishes, the sound of an office phone. The sound of an office phone, I don't know how you don't all just kill each other. If I had to go to an office every day and hear that like the office phone, at a certain point, it would just be like Kill Bill. It would trigger me and I would kill everyone in my immediate vicinity. If I heard that 6 million times in a year, I think the next time I heard it, I would just take an office scissors and just start stabbing everybody in the neck. I think I would just start slamming people inside the copy machine, stapling people in the face to death, impaling people with the forklift. I don't know how you guys do it. As much as I hate the poor, and as much as I hate wages, I do thank you for your service. I don't know how you guys do it. I can never do that. On the dead homies, I don't know how you guys do that shit. I will for once in my life. For once in my life, I will check my privilege. I know you guys harbor this animosity towards me. You always say, you have no right to complain. You have it easy. You're right, I do. I would rather be threatened with death at my house and be canceled than be subjected to a life like that, like seriously. I know I always complain and say, people are trying to kill me at my house. But it's like if you had to pick between occasionally having a gun pointed at your front door and doing that, I would take the loaded gun every single day. I would take it every single day. Not that I want that to happen. Ideally it's neither. But if you had to pick, that's why I always say, like, if I wasn't doing a show, I'd probably be a drug addict or something. Because I would want to have money, don't want to work for it, probably turn to a life of crime, have to kill people not to get caught. It would be a different lifestyle. Maybe I'd just be a small business owner. I think at the minimum, you gotta be a small business owner. I don't know how people do the wage thing. That's just like a diabolical scheme. I don't know how people are not like rioting in the streets. You live like that every day, man. You live like this, and 3 months out of the year you work for the government, which is actually a cash transfer to black people. Think about it. Everything I just said, you do that 250 days out of the year. Wake up with the alarm clock, shower, pack your lunch, put on your polo and slacks, get in the car, drive to work. You do that 250 days out of the year. And out of that, it's 70 of those days, you're working for black people. The government is withholding 25% out of your paycheck per year. 25% of the year is 3 months. And then they take your paycheck and they give it to Venezuelans, Somalians, Israel, government workers. I don't know how you guys don't lose your mind. I guess it's because you hold the money from your paycheck, you never see it. They don't tell you where it's going. They beat you into submission. Watch more TikTok, watch more Netflix. It's what it is. I mean, it really is the way. Anyway.
Comes to reverse deportations. We could at least significantly increase remigration financial incentives and build a wall so they can't come back and abuse an incentive policy. It won't happen, but a fool can dream Poland style.
You're coping, dude. Let it go. People are always like, "Here's how Trump can still win." Bro, let it go. It's never gonna happen. Yeah, he could do a lot of things, but he won't. He could do a ton of different things, but he hasn't and he won't because he doesn't care. And the people behind him don't want to. Why call it a tasty treat? I don't know how adults talk like this. I see people say, I need a sweet treat. How do you talk like that as an adult? My favorite dessert? It's anything with like cake and ice cream. Brownie and ice cream, cake and ice cream, pistachio gelato, frozen custard with a brownie in it, a cookie salad, anything like that. Anything with hot and cold, anything with like ice cream and something like a cake. That's probably one of my favorites. I don't really like anything with fruit. My parents love all the fruit stuff. They're always like getting coffee cake with fruit or cookies with fruit. My parents are really into that kind of thing. You know, fruit tart or fruit trifle. Fruit is gay and boring. I don't want fruit. If I'm gonna eat dessert, I want dessert. Strawberries and whipped cream is not dessert, okay? Hate to break it to you, but my mom makes this trifle. And it's good. It's like pound cake with whipped cream, with like peaches and strawberries. You know, that's not really like a dessert. Okay? If I want dessert, I want a chocolate cake with ice cream. I want a hot brownie and hot fudge and ice cream and sprinkles. I want a big chocolate chip cookie and vanilla ice cream on it. Like that. I want a big piece of butter cake or bread pudding, and that's what I want. And I'm easy like that, I'm simple. But the whole fruit thing, people say fruit is dessert. Okay. Yeah, let's all get excited about that. We had our slab of beef. Now let's have some berries. Okay. Now, where's the food now? I really don't understand that. Some people get so jazzed up, they're like, you know what would hit the spot? Scrambled eggs, steak, and then some strawberries. Okay, where's the mozzarella sticks, bro? Where's the cheese? Where's the fried stuff? Where's the cheese? Where's the dipping sauces? Where's the fucking bread? Where's the sugar? These people that say that stuff is the enemy, I want to kill them. I'm feeling I should really calm down with this violent rhetoric. I see that people say, you know, bread is the enemy, cheese is the... People don't really say that. That stuff, the sugar, that's the enemy. No, dude, that is your friend. What would you do without it? Like, seriously, what would be good in life if we all chose to live like you guys? Wow. Everybody gets so on my case. They're like, this guy says he wants to marry a whore. This guy says he eats refined sugars and bread. Dude, okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, let's all marry a Midwestern mid who's a little shrewd and a bitch. And then let's have her bring out the scrambled eggs and blueberries. Yeah, I think I'd rather die. Okay, I think I'd rather die. And you wonder why we're losing them to Andrew Tate? We're losing them. You wonder why we're losing them? A harem. And yes, some guys want a cookie skillet also, and that's okay. I'm just trying to get people excited about life. You know, I'm just trying to get people excited about, I have to live a certain way, you know? So yeah, the food thing usually bothers me. People go, oh, we got fruit for dessert. Like, come on. Anyway, I know I'm kind of doing this bit to death, but it is really like, this needs to be known. This information needs to be out there. Especially now that I'm on a diet. If I want dessert, it's like, I want vanilla frozen custard with brownies in it. Keep the fruit. Hold the fucking melon. That's the best part. You know what's the best part? People bring out the dessert. It's not even a good fruit. Like strawberries. It's always like honeydew, right? Or cantaloupe. The worst fruits. They're not even sweet. You ever notice that? It's always they bring out the fruit for dessert and it's a cantaloupe. You know, and strawberry and blueberry, that's bad enough. It's bad enough to have like a medley, like a medical arrangement, pineapple, strawberry, but at least it's sweet. Then they bring out the cantaloupe, you're like, okay, what are we, Amish? The Jehovah's Witnesses? Melon and honeydew? You hate your death. I really feel compelled to say something about
Based
this.
white Irish Catholic Boston girl at the
Someone
center.
else speak up.
Hey Nick, I lost my wife, kids, and 4 lifelong friends over disagreements about Epstein and how I agree with your take on it. I'm glad those since you were right and I'm currently wearing the quarter zip. Thanks for coming back. Also, Myron's bid on credit is good.
That's bait. That is not real.
Love it, MC.
You know, if you're virtue signaling about Epstein, that's just really cringe. I want the Epstein files to be released. I want accountability and everything. But if you're one of these people that's like, about it, I can't with that. If you're one of these girl dads that's like, the White House is whatever. What we have, nail it. Come on. I don't know. I just really hate virtue signaling in general.
I visited Chicago for the first time. The city is one of the way. Food is the best ever. I was expecting a ton of blacks, but I'm surprised I didn't see that many. I went to Mexico now. Either speak English and they get service. Rock and roll McDonald's was the best McDonald's ever.
Okay, so that's a lie because Rock and Roll McDonald's doesn't exist anymore. So that's a lie, but I appreciate this completely fake story that you made up for some insane reason. That doesn't exist anymore. They tore it down. Now it's like some kind of green energy McDonald's. So you try
Marcos
it.
321 meal and sent $20. You mentioned you want to build a bar next to a coffee shop. Why not just combine it and call it a diner?
You know, because when I think of a diner, first of all, a diner is different. Economics are different. A bunch of different stuff. It's typically they do breakfast, lunch, dinner. People eat multiple meals there throughout the day. If you're a diner, then you gotta have pancakes and eggs and bacon, and you gotta have open-faced sandwiches and meatloaf and soup. I don't want to do all that. It's too complicated. And when you do a bunch of different dishes, it lowers the overall quality. You got a big menu, you make a bunch of different stuff. It's hard to make a bunch of different things and do them all well. And usually the coffee at a diner is just drip coffee. So when I think of a diner, I think about a shitty hamburger and a shitty cup of coffee. I think about a diner, I think about very average food, unremarkable, unexceptional food, average burger, average breakfast, small cup of coffee, shitty drip coffee. That's what I think of. When I think of a diner, I think of they make one thing, they do it exceptionally well. It's fast, it's high quality, they got it down. Good ingredients, it's a system. You go there, you get your burger, you're eating it in 5 minutes. And it's the best in town. When I think of a coffee shop, same thing. Specialize in coffee, it's an espresso bar, they got people that know how to work the machine and everything. Maybe it takes a little longer, people are okay with that. And if you're making donuts, then it's a bakery. Then it's a whole ass bakery. So I'm looking for 2 very specific things. I want a donut shop / coffee bar. I want a burger stand. You combine the 2, there's no donut. Some diners, I guess, do the homemade donut thing, but it's pretty rare. I guess you could do an espresso machine, but again, it's like someone's doing that whole thing while you're making all this other crap. The menu's too complicated. You know, I go to...
Billions of dollars. CIA before, and I had never heard about your role in the CIA before. And I was just like, how would you explain to me what you did there, what your role was, and what the CIA is?
Sure. The CIA is an intelligence service whose job it is, at its most basic level, to recruit spies to steal secrets and to analyze those secrets so that the policymakers can make the best informed policy. After 9/11, we were expecting an attack, using Osama bin Laden's words, that would dwarf 9/11. And so my job was to infiltrate Al-Qaeda by recruiting members of Al-Qaeda to tell us when and where that next attack was going to come so that we could disrupt it, we could kill or capture the leadership, and destroy the organization.
Can you give me a range of the things that you did during your time in the CIA, just for a very top-line range of the types of things you worked on?
Oh, sure. As an analyst, it was actually quite straightforward. We would write for the president, the vice president, the secretaries of state and defense, and the national security advisor.
And who were the presidents during that time?
When I started, it was George H.W. Bush, the father. And then it was Bill Clinton, then George W. Bush. There are several different publications. There's the President's Daily Brief, which is the most important. I covered Iraq the entire time that I was in analysis, from well before most Americans had ever heard of Iraq. I was told actually that it was a training account because nothing ever happened there, nothing ever changed, and then Iraq invaded Kuwait. The next day, I went back to Iraq. I was 25 years old, 26 years old, and my boss said, "Don't take your jacket off, we're going to the White House." I had never been to the White House before, except as a tourist. And so we got in a car, went to the White House, we're ushered into the Oval Office. It's the president, the vice president, the national security advisor, the director of the CIA, my boss, and me. And then we all sit down, the president has us sit down. We sit down and the president says, "Well, now what do we do?" And everybody turns and looks at me. And it took me a second. And I said, yes. I said, "Mr. President, as you know, Iraqi troops crossed the border at 2 o'clock this morning. The royal family has run away to Saudi Arabia. There's no occupation governor, et cetera, et cetera. Do we know who that is?" I said, "Yes, sir." I gave him the name. And I said, "Actually, he's the co-founder of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine." The vice president shouts, "Jesus Christ!" And then the president says, "Gentlemen, thank you. We'll take it from here." And I remember thinking myself, my friends would never believe in 1,000 years what I was doing right now. They wouldn't even believe me. That's what an analyst does. When I switched to operations, again, the job was very straightforward. It was to recruit spies to steal secrets. But then if you're involved in counterterrorism operations, there are a lot of extras that you have to be trained with. So you go through the normal spy training. This is how you ingratiate yourself. It's something called the asset acquisition cycle. Spy, assess, develop, recruit. You do a cocktail party. You seem like a nice guy. I introduce myself. I ask, "So what do you do for a living?" "Well, if you tell me you manage a shoe store," I say, "Well, it was very nice meeting you." And I'm going to go on to the next guy. But if you tell me you work at the port, you work in the Ministry of Defense, you work in the Chinese embassy, I'm going to invite you to lunch. I've spotted you, I've assessed you, and my assessment is I'd like to get to know you. Then I begin to develop you. I'll give you an example. I was in Pakistan. I got a tip that Al-Qaeda, a group of mid-level Al-Qaeda fighters, was meeting every single day in a coffee shop at 10 o'clock in the morning. My Arabic was absolutely flawless at the time. And so I had a bushy beard that I grew for operational reasons.
Can I hear some of your Arabic?
Yeah. تشرف بمعرفتك. It's nice to meet you. Or Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, Malik Yumadin, Rahman ar-Rahim. So I bought an Arabic newspaper and I went to the coffee shop and I just sat there. And sure enough, at 10 o'clock, the four of them came in. One of them looked at me, and I looked at him, and that was it. We made eye contact. I did that for a week. The second week, I was there, drinking my coffee, sitting with my Arabic newspaper, and the one who had looked at me the week before, he nodded. So I nodded back. That was it. No communication otherwise. The third week, I'm a regular now. He recognizes me. So he says to me, Salam alaikum. I said, Walaikum salam. May peace be upon you. And I say, and upon you peace. One day, he came in alone. And I said, Tafaddal, please have a seat. Sit with me. No sense in you sitting alone and me sitting alone. So he sat down and we started talking. And I asked him how long he had been in Pakistan. He said, I've been here for 5 years. I was in Pakistan. I was making jihad against the Americans. And I said, oh, that must have been hell on earth. He said, oh. He said that the bombing of Tora Bora was hideous. That was the word that he used. It was hideous. And I said, and what about your family? How's your family? He said, my wife and son and daughter, I've never met my son. He was born just after I left to make jihad. I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, yes, I'm lonely and I want to go home. And we continued this relationship. And finally I said to him, let me take you to dinner. Let's get out of that coffee shop. The truth was I didn't want one of his friends to walk in and see us. So we went to a restaurant for dinner. And I said, listen, there's something that I haven't been truthful with you about. I'm not.
Hey, that was Francine with Roger. Roger, I was very truthful with you.
And I said, actually, I'm American. Are you okay with that? And he says, I think so. And I said, well, actually, I'm a CIA officer. And he says, okay. So he didn't run screaming from the room or pull a gun or anything. And he said, why do you want me? Why do you want to talk to me? I said, actually, you have access to something that I want. It was very specific. And I told him what it was. And he says, and what will you do for me? And I said, anything your heart desires. Go home.
Come on, base building and strategic gameplay with enemy invasions, so you never get bored. And the best part about this game is that it has so you never get interrupted. So if you think you can rise the ranks and become the #1 player, then tap and download King Shot for free today.
Make every day feel epic in the all-new. I said, I can do that.
You wanted information,
I wanted information. Very specific information.
which you can't share.
No. I'll go right back to prison. We got him a passport. I bought him a first-class ticket. And I took him to the airport. I gave him some cash to get himself started again. And I said, before you go, I have to ask you, why did you agree to give me this information? And presumably I'm the enemy. And he said, I've been here 5 years, and you're the first person who ever asked me about my family. So I said, best of luck. Never saw him again. That's the job.
I have to ask you, take me on the journey of you being a young man in West Pennsylvania
Right.
to becoming a spy. What happened? Because I'll be honest, I don't really know what my perception of spies is, but it's not you.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. See, because I kind of work under the radar.
That's really interesting. Is there's so many what did you learn about spies as a podcast? Like, so if you go back a couple of years and someone had told me about spies, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe that these things actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
You hear about people going undercover and going to other countries and getting secrets and all of these things. And it's not until you meet the people that said, yes, that's me, I used to do that, that you have this paradigm shift in your mind and you go, oh my god, what else is really going on? Right. Because I lived in this world probably up until the age of, 30 years old, where I kind of just assume things are what they are. Like, as I see them. And then you start to discover that there's layers of secrecy, they're doing all these situations. And even like as a podcaster now, I have moments where I go, like, how do I know that you're not here to steal secrets from me?
Right.
So, you know what's funny? When I had Andrew Bustamante on the show, the comment sections are always the same. They're always like, once a CIA spy, always a CIA
I
spy.
hate when people say that.
It's
It's so intellectually lazy.
But I do wonder, and I go, okay, here's a super conspiracy theory. What if the CIA have made spies do really well in the YouTube algorithm so that all of us as long-form podcasters invite them on, and then they...
You know what? I would agree with that. I would have agreed with that a year ago. Monte has really made a handsome living out of selling his experience.
Yeah.
And he's on every podcast.
Yeah.
But I am the most anti-CIA, former CIA person that's out there.
But wouldn't that be the perfect...
I mean, if I weren't constantly criticizing the CIA as an organization that's just out of control.
Do you think the CIA are for podcasters and for...
I think yes, now they do. It took them a little while to get current, but just like they over time developed a strategy with Hollywood, sure, they're developing a strategy with podcasters. You know, it was only in the last 10 years that the CIA opened a branch within the Office of Public Affairs whose job it is solely to liaise with Hollywood studios. The FBI's been doing this since the 40s. And the goal is that everything that comes out of Hollywood should be pro-CIA. And, you know, we end up with security and, you know, the recruit and the CIA, Argo. The CIA is always the hero in these movies.
If now, and your job was to infiltrate and use creators or podcasters as an asset for the CIA's objectives, how might you design that plan if we were just hypothesizing?
You would have to have a goal that would be specific enough that you could actually track the progress to it. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to pay this podcaster X amount of money and we're going to do something with the algorithm to make him vastly popular among men, you know, 18 to 30, let's say. There's got to be more to it than that. It has to be a message. You've got to be able to get a specific, well-honed message out there. And the message can be anything. It could be, you know, love the CIA, we're the good guys. It could be support the overthrow of the Iranian government. It could be, you know, any criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu is anti-Semitism. It could be anything you want it to be. You just have to make sure that it's repeated. See, this is the danger with the torture program. This is one of the very important reasons that I went public when I did, because my colleagues, my superiors at the CIA kept repeating this lie over and over and over again that torture worked, and that torture got us information that saved American lives, and that was just simply not true. It was a lie. Besides being illegal, immoral, unethical, it just wasn't true. And so I decided, before we go down this road anymore, I'm going to go public.
Fucking ads.
So can you take me back then? We got a little bit sidetracked there, but
Five people.
John, how did you come to be a CIA spy?
When I was 9 years old, I told my parents that I wanted to be a spy when I grew up. It came time to apply for college, and I only applied at one university, George Washington University in Washington, because it was 2 blocks from the White House, and it was one of only 3 schools in America that offered a Middle Eastern Studies program. I was one of only 4 people in that brand new Middle Eastern Studies program. I stayed for a master's degree in legislative affairs with a focus on foreign policy analysis. I was taking a class in that program called The Psychology of Leadership. It was taught by an eminent psychiatrist named Dr. Gerald Post. And he gave us an assignment one day where we had to shadow our bosses. We had to just follow our bosses for a week.
Your bosses?
Yeah, I worked at a labor union called the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. And so we were just supposed to boss around for a week and then write a psychological profile. I used dozens of, footnotes from psychology texts, and I ended up saying that he was a sociopath with psychopathic and possibly violent tendencies, and, I had these citations. I passed the paper in. Dr. Post gives it back to me a week later, gave me an A, and then he wrote, "Please see me after class." So I went up to him after the class, and I said, "Dr. Post, you wanted to see me?" He says, "Come to my office." So we went down there, he closed the door, and he says, "Listen, I'm not really a professor here. I'm a CIA officer, undercover as a professor here. And I'm looking for people who would fit into the CIA's culture. I think you would fit into the CIA's culture. Would you like to be a spy?" And I said, "Yes, I would." He took the phone and called a number, and he said, "Bob, this is Jerry. I've got a good one for you. Do you have some time?" And he said, "Sure." He writes an address on a scrap of paper, and he says, "Be at this address in 20 minutes. It was only one subway stop away. So I jumped on the metro. I went to Roslyn, Virginia, just across the river. He said, "Oh, you ready?" And the woman opens the door. She says, "Are you here for Bob?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "Come on in." I'm sitting there for a moment, and then this 6'6", 350-pound giant rolls out of his office, and he says, "John, Bob, how the hell are you? I want you to be at the George Washington University Medical School Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. We've got some tests for you." I said, "Okay." And then we shook hands, and I left. So Saturday morning, I went to the GW Medical School auditorium. There were 200 people there, and they hand us a test. My wife picked me up. She said, "How did you do?" I said, "Oh, this is my wife."
That you were applying for the CIA.
Yes, and that was going to be pretty much the extent of what she ended up knowing. Because once I got in,
But you weren't allowed to tell her.
I was not allowed to tell her. No.
So you told her anyway.
Yeah. When I first applied, they said, "Listen, don't tell anybody because you may go under cover, you may go under deep cover, and we can't have people out there who know that you're a CIA officer."
Presumably the CIA are smart enough to be able to tell them.
Yeah. And they ask you on the polygraph, "Did you tell her?"
Really?
And I said, "Yeah, I told her. She's my wife. What am I going to do?" But it got to the point where I'd get home from a day where, I broke into some guy's house and planted a camera on a bug, and I'd get home and she'd say, "How's your day?" I'd say, "Great." "What'd you do?" "Not a darn thing." And then my phone would ring at, midnight, and a guy would say, "The rain in Spain falls manly in the plain." And I'd say, "Mares eat oats and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy." And that means, "Meet me at the yacht club parking lot in 3 hours." And then I'd leave. She would say, where are you going? It's midnight. I gotta work. So I'd leave, I'd do my meeting, I'd come home, 6 o'clock in the morning, just in time to shower and shave and get dressed to go to work. And she would say, "What was her name?" And I remember this one terrible time. That's what she said to me. What was her name? The truth is, I had been sitting in a garbage dumpster, waiting for a guy to drive by down the alley and throw a bag of documents in. And I stunk of garbage. And I said to her, "Do I seriously smell like I can breathe?" Seriously. So we ended up getting a divorce.
New to fuel meals, high protein, 30 to 75 grams per meal, minimal clean ingredient.
So you do the assessment, presumably you get in.
Yeah,
You do
well,
training.
he called me 2 weeks later. Bob did. And he said, "You blew the doors off those tests." I said, "Oh, great. Okay." So a month later, they summoned me to headquarters. And I was interviewed by the Office of Near Eastern Operations, the Office of Near Eastern Analysis, and the Office of Leadership Analysis. I was offered the analysis job on the Iraq desk.
And what is the percentage of the training you were given in the variety of different roles that you had? Like, how do they train this question?
That's a good question. And the answer is vastly different depending on where you start your career. So
Okay.
because I started mine in analysis, the immediate training was in mastering the CIA's writing style. So the most important product that the CIA writes every day is the PDB, the President's Daily Brief.
And it tells the president what?
What you think he needs to know.
Okay.
So, for example, when the Iraqis began moving to the Kuwaiti border, we had this big debate. Are they gonna cross the border? Yes or no? So I said, listen, why don't I call the American Defense Attaché in Baghdad? And I'll just ask him to drive down there and look and tell us what he sees. He drives down there, drives back, he calls me, and he says, literally the entire Iraqi military is on its way to the Kuwaiti border. So we wrote a thing for the president saying Iraq is going to invade Kuwait and it's probably going to happen in the next 48 hours.
And when did the president see that particular brief?
At 7 a.m. the next morning.
Okay. And is there ever situations where the president would get it in the middle of the night
Yes. Yeah.
and be told in the middle of the night that?
Yes. There are these levels of immediacy. There's routine, which is like, who cares? And then there is priority, which means, I'll get to it sometime today. Then there's immediate, which means you should probably read it first. But then there's flash, which means, oh my God, something terrible just happened. You should probably wake the president. And then there's critic, which means coming over the embassy walls, we're at war, wake up the president, scramble the jets.
9/11.
9/11. That's a critic.
So going back to this question of your training,
Yeah.
what is it that the CIA teach you about human nature and how to use human nature to your advantage? That could be transferable to other disciplines in life, like business or...
Well, this is going to sound not very nice, but it's real life. It's everyday life, especially in business. The CIA actively seeks to hire people who have what they call sociopathic tendencies. Not sociopaths. Sociopaths have no conscience. They'll just blow right through a polygraph exam. But they're impossible to corral. They're impossible to keep under rein. And it's because they're not able, their brains won't allow them to feel regret or remorse. Now, in business, most CEOs are sociopaths. Most, not all, but most, especially in big companies, because they claw their way to the top, usually on the backs of the people around them. They don't feel bad screwing the next guy to get that next promotion. The CIA wants people like that because those are the people who are going to break into a foreign embassy. A normal person would not advocate breaking into a foreign embassy that's sovereign territory of a foreign country. I would. I'd be glad to do it.
Why?
Because we're the good guys.
So do you have sociopathic tendencies?
Absolutely.
What are your sociopathic tendencies?
My sociopathic tendency was to operate in legal, moral, and ethical gray areas. Specifically. That's what it was.
I'm really curious about what we can learn about human nature from someone whose job was to meet strangers and to get them to basically sometimes to turn against their own country. Like, I'm really interested in, and I think it's informative because so many of us, when we think about what good leadership is or what good man or womanship is, it seems like there's transferables. I guess for some people it's family, I guess for some people it's something else. That hook that you're talking about, that thing that gets them.
And the word that they use in this is a vulnerability. And it's not really a vulnerability in every case. Now, 95%, studies have been done about this internally at the CIA, 95% of the people who agreed to become spies for us do it for the money, right? It's a simple cash transaction. You give me money, I'll give you secrets. 95%.
So you telling me that you think human motivation is 95% driven by money?
The rest was love and family, ideology, revenge, and excitement. You're gonna get a handful of people who are hooked on movies, and they will do it. I mean, you're gonna pay them anyway, but they will do it just for the adrenaline rush.
It's interesting because when I look at this list of things and I compare it to business, I would say it's slightly different from my experience of hiring people, specifically of hiring people. I tend to think that, you know, people wonder themselves, why would someone leave a company right now like, I don't know, OpenAI and go work at a startup? They're going to get paid way more at OpenAI. You've got this equity and these grants, but people are en masse doing that. And even when I think about the early days of Google, people left the big and they went for Larry and Sergey, getting paid way less.
Right.
But to be involved in something exciting. And so and this is what I think about when I sit, you know, probably I've had thousands of people in my life now across my businesses. And money is a factor, but it doesn't tend to be the biggest factor. It tends to be, in my experience, there's a particular hero's journey in their mind that they want to be seen through. They want to complete. You know, there's a particular way that they see themselves and they want to fulfill that.
Oh, I could get that. I work with a very, very tiny startup right now called IB Cyber, and it focuses on privacy software, you know, things like, you know, scrambling your data so it can't be intercepted, that sort of thing. And I've participated in a couple of pitches to angel investors, and they all say exactly the same thing that you did.
And this is why I was confused when I had that money was 95%. Especially in the work that, I don't know, especially the work that you do, I would assume.
But look at it this way. You're comparing people who are making a life versus people who are betraying their country.
In those examples that you've given, money is to take care of my family and to be able to, you know, fulfill my ideology. And maybe to get excitement and revenge. Do you know what I'm saying? So even just the guy that wanted the plane ticket so he could fly home. Yeah, he could. The money could have got him home if you just given him. Sure. The reason why he wanted to go home was because his family.
His family. That was it.
What's the extent of the things that the CIA can get as a incentive for someone to turn against the nation to give secrets?
Quite literally anything you can imagine.
Even if it's against the law?
Well, like they're not going to get like drugs or, you know, child prostitutes or, no, not stuff like that.
What if someone said, I want you to get me a green card?
Yeah, sure.
What if they
If
said,
the information's good enough, not a problem.
what if they said, I want you to, I've got this tax bill, I want you to make the tax bill go away?
Okay, give me the plans to that Russian tank, we'll make it happen.
What if it was an American, would they speak to the IRS here and just get rid of it?
Oh, if it was an American citizen, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
But why?
No. We normally don't recruit American citizens. By law, the CIA can't operate domestically, although they have offices all over the country. Those offices are generally to debrief business leaders, C-suite officers who travel to denied areas. For example, if you take a trip to North Korea, let's say, I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna say, you don't know me, but I'm from the CIA and I understand you just went to North Korea and I was wondering if I could come over to your office for an hour and just ask you about your trip. 99.99% are gonna say yes because they're patriots. So I go to your office, I give you my business card, and we just chat about, you know, your impressions of the place and that kind of thing.
I need gas money, but I don't get paid until next week. What should I do?
You've gotta check out the Earn app. You can get up to $150 a day with a max of $750 between paydays. There's no interest, no credit check.
No way.
Yes, download it today.
close off on this point. Are there any skills that the CIA taught you or trained you in that you think are transferable for business that we haven't talked about?
They trained us also in lying and lie detection. That was actually quite important. You know, at the CIA, you're a trained liar. And this is why the divorce rate's so high. It's the highest divorce rate of any entity in the US government. It's upwards of 80%.
Trained to lie? How do they train you to lie?
Hi, my name is Dave Phillips. I work for an import-export company.
But do they teach you the art of lying?
Oh, yeah.
And what is the art?
You know, it's hard to pin down. You just sort of have to have it. You have to have that ability. But the hard part is you have to keep the lies straight. I'll give you another example. I've never told this story before. I was asked by headquarters. I was overseas in the Middle East, and I was asked by headquarters to target one specific officer of this foreign government.
Target?
Yeah. How are you? Okay. Oh, we've never met. I'm John. So nice to meet you. Let me take you to lunch. He had access to information that we really needed. So they told me to accidentally bump into him. So I surveilled him for a week. And he was single. And on Saturday, he went to a coffee shop. So I go into the coffee shop, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I said, I know you. Ministry of Foreign Affairs? He said, yes, I know you. He said, I am John from the American Embassy. Oh, nice to see you. I said, hey, good to see you too. You live in the area? Yes, I do. I said, oh, so do I. I didn't. I lived like across town. Oh, fancy meeting you here at this coffee shop. I come here all the time. Do you? Yeah, he says, I come here all the time. Why don't you have a seat, he says. So I sit down. At the end of the conversation, I go back to the embassy and I read a cable and I said, he's gay. I'm 100% sure he's gay. So then we started this conversation. Headquarters and I, how can we use that to our benefit?
Did he have a wife?
No.
He was single?
Which was unusual at his age.
How did you know he was gay?
Oh, I just, it was a vibe.
Okay.
So, headquarters says, we want you to pretend that you're gay. I said, oh, come on, you guys. No, we really need the information. You gotta pretend that you're gay. I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for Uncle Sam. So I call him and I said, hey, I have 2 tickets to this show and I was hoping maybe you'd be free. Maybe we'll grab some sushi afterwards. He said, yeah, I'd love to. So we go to the show. He thoroughly enjoyed it. And we go for sushi afterwards. And then we go out again and he says, why don't you come over to my place some night and I'll make dinner. I said, great. So I go over to his place, he made a lovely dinner. And then I thought, well, I have to invite him to my place. So I told my wife, you're gonna have to get out. So she left, I made dinner. I removed all the pictures of each other. And we had just gotten married. So we had our wedding picture up and everything. At the dinner, he leaned in to kiss me. And I instinctively backed off. He said, oh my God, I'm sorry. I thought you're gay. And I said, oh no, I am gay. I'm not into hairy guys. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, I'm sorry. I think you're great, but I'm not feeling it.
You didn't kiss him?
No.
No.
So we remained friends. And in the end, he gave me the information. Because we were friends. And then he opened up, he's like, I can't tell anybody I'm gay, they suspect I am, and they passed me over for promotion, and my boss asked me, is there something in your personal life that you're not telling me? He knows I'm gay. I said, don't tell them you're gay. Just say that you've just never met the right woman, and inshallah, the right woman is coming, in your life at some point, and I actually did it a couple years ago, and he did become an ambassador finally.
And he's still working in that country now? Mm-hmm. Does that kind of still happen a lot in the CIA, where you have to take one for the team?
Yes.
Have you ever taken one for the team?
No.
I'm not sure you're telling the truth.
Well, it came close.
When did it come close?
So I was overseas. I was a brand new